Most folks have never heard of major portions of the Constitution. If I were to say one of the chief ways to keep judicial activism under control in judiciary is the exceptions clause of the Constitution, people would say, what's the exceptions clause? I've never heard of that.
Well, let me just say it right now. What is the exceptions clause? Okay.
One of the notions that people have is the federal judiciary can deal with any issue that's out there, that they get to put the final word on any issue that is before the court. The Constitution says that the judges can only deal with those issues that Congress give them permission to deal with. So Congress can, and that's what's called the exceptions clause. The court can deal with anything except those issues that Congress withholds from it. So we don't have to have a constitutional amendment to have voluntary school prayer. Congress can simply pass a law that says no federal judge can deal with the issue of prayer at a football game. We've accepted it out of their dominion. Wow. It's been done over 200 times in American history. It's a great way to keep judges under control, because consistently what we have now is the higher the poll number of the people supporting an issue, the more likely it is for the judges to strike it down. Wow. They've gone into this mentality that says the role of the judiciary is to protect the minority from the majority. Wait a minute, that's oxymoronic, because what you've just said is the role of the judiciary is to make the minority into the majority. Right. Then who protects the majority from the minority? You know, only one side ever wins in politics, and it's supposed to be the bigger side. That's why it's the consent of the governed. The judiciary is taking it on themselves to say, oh, if the governed are for it, that's unfair. So if we have a person over here that's an atheist and doesn't want to hear anybody else say under God in the pledge, we'll make you all stop so that he won't be offended. And that's not the role of government.
And the Founding Fathers set forth a provision to keep that kind of nonsense from happening. That's right. And we don't hear about it, nor do we just debate it.
Do you know, the Constitution is such an easy document. It is a short document. You can sit down, you can read it in half an hour. It's just not a hard document to read. Most Americans have never read it even once in their life. In the period of time it takes to watch a sitcom, you could read the Constitution and know what that document says. But we rely on media to tell us what it says. We rely on law professors. We rely on guys like this to tell us what it says. Yeah. If we read it for ourselves, it's a no-brainer. It's a very easy thing.
A closer look into our nation's history reveals surprising and irrefutable evidence of the Bible's influence on our founding fathers and our nation's Constitution. But does a biblically inspired Constitution make America a Christian nation? And is there a place for the Bible in today's modern political climate? Discover our nation's godly history in the American Heritage Series. America, this is your heritage.
It was because of our strong Christian faith that our founders were so willing to welcome those of other faiths to America. Our founders knew the truth of Christianity, and they believed that Christianity would prevail on its own merits without the need for force or coercion. As explained by Thomas Jefferson,
truth can stand by itself. Why subject opinion to coercion to produce uniformity? Is uniformity attainable? Millions of innocent men, women, and children since the introduction of Christianity have been burnt, tortured, fined, imprisoned, yet we have not advanced 1 inch towards uniformity. What has been the effect of coercion? To make one half the world fools and the other half hypocrites. If there be but one right religion, and Christianity that one, we should wish to see the 999 wandering sects gathered into the fold of truth. But against such a majority, we cannot effect this by force. Reason and persuasion are the only practicable instruments. To make way for these, free inquiry must be indulged. And how can we wish others to indulge it while we refuse it ourselves?
Consequently, our founding fathers openly acknowledged and welcomed the presence of numerous religious groups in America, including Buddhists, Muslims, and Jews. In fact, Dr. Benjamin Rush, a signer of the Declaration and one of the most evangelical Christians among the founding fathers, openly declared,
"Such is my veneration for every religion that reveals the attributes of the deity, or a future state of rewards and punishments, that I had rather see the opinions of Confucius or Muhammad inculcated upon our youth, than see them grow up wholly devoid of a system of religious principles. But the religion I mean to recommend in this place is that of the New Testament."
And while describing a federal parade in Philadelphia, Dr. Rush commented,
"The rabbi of the Jews locked in the arms of two ministers of the gospel was a most delightful sight. There could not have been a more happy emblem.
And Elias Boudinot, a president of Congress during the American Revolution, served as president of the Society for Ameliorating the State of the Jews, and he made personal provision for bringing persecuted Jews to America. This tolerance for other faiths and religions, however, did not alter or negate the fact that America was founded by Christians on Christian principles. If America will go back to its roots, they'll find out, you know, the Founding Fathers, using biblical wisdom, have given us all sorts of tools. The Bible says there's nothing new under the sun.
Wow.
Those principles are universal, and by the way, they're not just American principles. Not only is God no respecter of persons, He's no respecter of nations. Yes. Any nation that will take these principles and apply them, the biblical principle out of Jeremiah 17:9 on separation of powers, any nation that wants to use that, it's going to work.
Yes. Okay, so if all of the quotes that revert back to the Bible and all the wisdom comes from the Bible, then are we living in a theocracy at this point in the United States?
That's certainly what the seculars claim. Oh, you guys want religion involved? Why, that's a theocracy. You have to go, time out. The reason we have a successful constitutional republic is because religion was involved. That's what gave us these ideas. You get republicanism out of Exodus 18:21. That's Article 4, Section 4 of the Constitution. Article 3, Section 1, dealing with certain forms of punishment, comes right out of Ezekiel. I mean, there's so many clauses of the Bible that we find in the Constitution, certainly biblical concepts. That's why historians have shown that there's nothing that appears in the Declaration of the Constitution that wasn't already taught in the American pulpit before 1763.
Wow.
So what we're saying is these biblical ideas, and people today think the Bible is a tiny little narrow aspect of living. It deals with eternal life. Well, it does. It deals with spiritual life in the future, but it deals with practical life right now. You find the free enterprise system in the Bible. You find proper and improper forms of taxation in the Bible. The Bible talks about capital gains taxes. The Bible talks about minimum wage. The Bible talks about all these things. Christians think it's just a little bitty spiritual book. It's not. So what happens is all these biblical ideas create the environment and the document and the specific ideas in those documents. And today we're being told, oh, if you believe those ideas, that's a theocracy. Now, how oxymoronic is that? The very ideas that produced republicanism and free government are now we're now being told that that's what creates a theocracy. So what they do is they say, oh, you guys with those ideas have to stay out of the government. No, no, no. The reason we have the government is because those ideas were in the government.
Right.
That's not a theocracy, not by any means. Founding Fathers had a great love for separation, church and state. They didn't want the two institutions running each other. But they did not have a great love for separating God from government or God from any aspect of life. And that's what people who yell theocracy today mean. They say, oh, you're trying to impose your values on me. Well, the value that says don't kill is a biblical value. You're right, I'm trying to impose that on you.
Correct.
But that doesn't make it a theocracy because there are certain sets of values to which society adheres that we choose to use as our standard of living. That's not a theocracy. A theocracy is when you get one person who rules in the name of God above all other wills. That's the divine right of kings. There's nobody in America that wants a theocracy. So the nonsense that if you say religion's involved in government, you're establishing theocracy, it's meant to scare people of faith from being involved. It's an intimidation phrase. That's all.